G'day guys, welcome to Super Little Challenges. I'm your host Daniel Thomas, and this show, in its essence, for anyone who might be a first-time listener, is about overcoming challenges. My guest today is Darleen Priday. She is the CEO of DP Consults and a sales coach who has over 25 years experience in leadership roles. Darleen is focused on empathetic business and selling strategies which empower people to approach sales as an extension of who they are, which is not a traditional model, I think. We had an awesome chat. Before I get into that, I thought I'd share a bit of a challenge I've had this week. Not a huge thing, there's bigger issues in the world, but something I've had to overcome or battle this week is traffic jams. Now, I live in Germany, and often Germany is the land of the Stau, which is traffic jam in German. Even though there's the Autobahn where you can essentially go as fast as you want in parts, there's often random and ridiculous traffic jams, which can be quite mind-boggling at times. This week, I was trying to get to a grill on the other side of town with the family, and we were stuck in a random traffic jam and all sorts of things going on. And then on the other side of the road where all the trucks were blocked, I could actually see what was causing the traffic jam. And sometimes ignorance is bliss. You don't necessarily want to know what's the prime instigator of the traffic jam. But in this case, I drove past it and I saw it, and it was a giant truck with a Sex World logo on the side. It had been pulled over by the cops. So basically it was a truck full of sex toys, and the cops were like inspecting whatever was in the back. Kind of random, kind of strange, but it helped give me a chuckle and get through the stress of being stuck in traffic. The next one, a couple of days later, my son had a really important gig. He's been learning guitar. He was doing a concert, and we left with plenty of time to get there, and then just random streets blocked, closed, like 3 of them for no reason whatsoever. The Navi had a mind of its own and sent us on some ridiculous bypass thing that made no sense to try and get around the traffic jam, but only made the situation worse. I wasn't concerned for me. I was concerned for my son. He was getting quite stressed about it because of the importance of the occasion. So I took the liberty of driving basically through a red light and a completely blocked intersection. And the strange thing is, sometimes when I start my car here and do nothing, I get beeped. But when I decide to pull the most illegal move and drive through a blockade, basically, not a beep, not a single beep. And that's what helped us get there on time, and the gig was awesome. All right, guys, that's enough of my moaning about traffic. Let's get into my chat with Darleen Priday. So your focus is primarily in the sales side of businesses, but would it be fair for me to say that a lot of your philosophies or principles are applicable to many areas of professional and personal life?
Yes, I think how I operate, it could be applied to anything. The relationship building, caring about people, generous mindset, pouring into others, that transcends any role. And I think when you operate like that, it makes business a lot nicer too.
Yeah, I was originally in the corporate world as an architect, and I've had a number of other jobs for quite large corporations and things, and there's been a consistent frustration with that, with a lack of empathy. And I've always, whatever workplace it has been, I have prided myself on being an empathetic person. And I've always found it hard to separate that from business, I understand being professional and everything, but I think it's very hard when you're an empathetic person to
Yeah. Corporate life is not for me. It is not, between being empathetic, but I'm also really a rebel. Like if somebody tells me you have to do it a certain way, like I have to do it a different way. So I'm not the conformist. So corporate, like I've worked in corporate before, it never went well.
Yeah, likewise. Likewise. I think I may have some issues with authority, but I
I do
understand.
too. I do too. I keep, the older I get, I just keep my character flaws. I keep pretending they're strengths. Like, oh, it has to be a strength for something, right?
So did you go to college, and what was your early professional
So,
life?
so I went to college, and I actually have a degree in fashion marketing. And I was in the fashion world for many years until my daughter was born. Well, a couple of years after my daughter was born. And then I went into I just stayed with sales, but I went into logistics because it was something I could do from home. And that was 20 something years ago. Right. So I did sales with a trucking broker, which was a challenge. It was definitely, definitely difficult. And then I went into the virtual staffing, which I'm still in virtual staffing, but out of that for this need that I kept seeing. And that's why I developed my company of a sales coach, because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who really have a hard time when they think about selling. So they have a great service, they have a great offering, and then they get into a sales call, so to speak, and they freeze up. They feel like it's inauthentic, all of those different things. So I've had quite the career. I also, another character flaw I have is like, I look at anything like, how hard could that be? Right. Like, except for the mountain climbing, that I know I would die on that mountain. Right. But other than that, like I kind of underestimate the work involved and overestimate what I can do. But I kind of like that challenge.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. How much would you say fear is a factor when you're saying you're working with entrepreneurs and so on? How much is fear a factor in their selling side of things?
Fear is huge. And I think it's huge for everybody, because even like I always tell people, it's not that I'm not afraid. My fear comes out as overconfidence, right? Everybody packages it a little differently. So mine is more high level functioning with fear. So, but I think they have fear of rejection. They have fear that they're not good enough. It's really a mindset. They have a fear that they are, going to look like an idiot or fail. And it's really, everybody's in the same boat though. When you think of it that way, it makes there's a lot less pressure.
It's amazing how much you can get 20 pieces of positive feedback and then the one piece of negative feedback. Just if you're not careful, you can run away with that.
Well, I think especially for the people, like for sales in general is brutal, right? Like you have to get used to rejection. And I started looking at it like, instead of, is it a yes, a sale, or a no? Am I building that trust? Am I building that relationship? That to me is very satisfying. It's very rewarding that even if it is a no, it might be not now, it might be a referral partner, or it might just be somebody who is really neat and I get to talk to them. So you have to reframe it. But when you're a solopreneur and you're selling your services, you are that product. So there's so much more on the line when you are having those conversations, because that rejection can hit hard. So that's what I help my clients do, is have that mind shift. Like, it just because it's a no doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. And also when you're getting yeses too, it might not be that you're doing something right either. Sometimes it's just, it is what it is.
I think folks have a pretty good radar for when they're being hoodwinked. you know? So as you say, when it's coming from an honest place and there's that trust, that's so much more rewarding.
Yeah, back to the empathy. I mean, you want somebody to operate on putting themselves in your shoes and trying to get the best solution for you. You don't want to be sold on something. People really they shy away from. I know I do. I can sense when somebody is selling me something, and I'm probably the worst person. And I tell people, like, listen, I'm a salesperson. Please do not go through your spiel. Like, please don't save yourself time. I want to be honest with you, like, move to somebody else, right? But I think when people don't feel heard or valued or listened to, I think it could really, for me, even if I want to buy that service, back to being a little bit of a rebel or a big rebel. Like, if I feel like somebody's trying to sell me, even if I want their service, like, it almost turns me off that I'm going to find a different route.
Yeah, we have, I'm sure you have them in the States too, but we have people on the street trying to get donations for charity and so on. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because it's obviously a good thing that they're doing, but they beeline you as you're coming down the street and they say, "Hey, I love your shoes," and I'm like, you don't love my shoes. You're just trying to. And I'm kind of torn, because I'm like, well, I see what they're doing and it's a charity, and I'm like, well, that's cool, but you're actually just, I mean, they've got to get the attention, right? But it's like, I find that a bit of a dilemma.
Also, when it's like when somebody is guilting you into something, or like, don't you want to help the children? Well, of course, but maybe you don't have cash on you, or maybe you donate by yourself to a million other things, So I think it's important, know the room. And I think you hit the nail on the head with being inauthentic. If somebody is like, the worst thing in the world is for somebody to act like they're interested in you or your business, and then when you say they say no to your services, you're like, the switch flips, and then you're disengaged, and that sucks. It sucks to be on that receiving end of it. So I always try to see, like, what would make that person feel heard. Some calls, people are just down to business and they don't have time to engage in small talk. I actually enjoy getting to know people a little bit more, but I have to be respectful of their time and where they're coming from too.
There's something nice about honesty and directness in business too. I think, from experience, just in meetings and so on, when somebody jumps at something that's not necessarily realistic, as opposed to somebody who says, "Hey, we can do that, but it's actually going to take longer." I think it's a fine line between cutting to the chase, but I think that saves everyone in the end if everybody's honest about the realities of a project.
Yes, and I think so. That is such a valuable nugget, is really knowing your customer, not overselling. I would rather undersell, over deliver every day. That creates trust, that creates referrals, that creates just a network of people that are coming to you. And to be honest, if you are not the solution, let them know that. For me, a lot of my clients, they're not even sure what they need when they're reaching out, and they may need a marketing strategy versus a sales strategy, or they may need a website. I go to their website, I don't even know what they do before. Like, how are you selling, right? So, I'm honest with them, like, hey, I may be down the road, but here are a couple of things that I see that need to be done before I can really move the needle for you. And here are some resources of who you can reach out to. If you have your own people, great. But here are people in my network that I know. And they respect that because they're leaning on you for advice and to know what step to take.
Do you deal with many artists? Because I think for creatives and artists, it's a particular tough thing to balance the commerce and the creative. And it's met with a whole heap of potential insecurity around the art. I know myself, I found it hard to find a balance between the commerce and the art side of things, but I also have a strong faith in what I'm doing, in an authentic way, and balancing the commerce it's quite tricky.
Yeah. So most of the clients that I work with are coaches and not artists per se, but I can absolutely relate to what you're saying because, again, I've had 100 different, I'm interested in everything. So I love painting, and I would make gifts for people. And I made the mistake of thinking I could start a business doing this, right? Like, oh, I'm going to now monetize this because everybody loves it and everything like that. Within a short time, it's not that I didn't get requests, but it was dreadful for me. I didn't enjoy doing the painting. I labored over it. I second guessed myself. I had insecurities. All of those different things. Now, I'm not saying that's for everybody. And I was also mediocre. Like, I'm not like, you know what I mean? That wasn't my big gifting. But what I'm saying is that is really close to home because it is so personal, and it is an extension and an expression of the artist that there has to be more on the line when you are monetizing it in any shape. My daughter's a performer. She's used to rejection. That's just the life of, being in theater. And, but it can get difficult at times when you hear no's, and you start to second guess your talent, but it's really not it's somebody else's perception of you versus what you're actually offering.
What are some practical takeaways people could do on a daily basis who are trying to push a business or a product?
So I think, first and foremost is know your target audience. So many people say, well, I can serve anybody, or this would be great for anybody. And that's not really true. And even if you do have a broad audience, niching down and saying like, this is my sweet spot. This is who I can serve all day long. Just like for me, coaches are my sweet spot, right? I do have clients that are website designers or service providers. I can serve them, but I stay in my lane and focused on coaches. But then if it makes sense, I take in other clients. So really knowing who you can serve and also knowing what value you bring. Solidify it, write it down. Sometimes people think just because they have it in their mind and they've been doing it so long, that doesn't mean that you're able to express it to someone. And you don't want a script where you sound like you are just, repeating what you wrote down, but you do want to have those selling points so ingrained in you that any conversation, it's going to naturally come out when you hear the needs of your clients. So knowing your service, what value you bring, and don't worry about selling. Figure out how can I convey my value and how can I actively listen to make sure this is a good fit.
If someone's quite diverse in their range of niches that they could potentially follow, how would somebody go about narrowing that focus to one of their many potential niches?
So I think even if you have a wide niche, I think making sure that you see the commonalities, like who did I serve well? What are all look at your success stories and see if there's a common thread within them. Even if they're in different industries, there's got to be some commonalities. Maybe it's the size of the company. Maybe it's entrepreneurs. Maybe it's small businesses. Maybe it's, 50 and above employees, whatever that is. But look at your successes, see where your wins were and why it worked. And then start developing that profile of who. So for example, I mentioned I sell virtual staffing, virtual assistants. And while we can serve really anybody who needs support, our focus is entrepreneurs and small businesses. We serve larger businesses as well, but really where we're moving the needle are those smaller entrepreneurs and smaller businesses. So again, you're not stopping who you can serve by niching down. You want to have somebody hear you speak and see themselves in what you are offering.
Where can people find you?
If anybody needs a sales strategy, or they're growing their business and they really feel uncomfortable with sales, I do a sales intensive, and in a matter of weeks, I empower those people to be able to sell their own services authentically, empathetically, and build a funnel and grow their business. I have a website, dp-consults.com, and you can also find me on LinkedIn. And again, if I am not the right service, I have an incredible network of providers that I can refer to.
Do you have a specific challenge you could offer the listeners? Not to put you on the spot, but yeah, if you have a challenge in mind, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I would say, the next sales call you have, don't look at it as a sales call. Look at it as a discovery call. Your goal at the end of that call is to build some form of trust with that person. Don't look at that's your win. Your win is not a sale. Your win is gaining that trust. And see how that feels. See how that feels for you. See how that feels for the person you're talking to. And if you get a no, don't take it as a no. Really see, is this not the right service for them? Or is it a not now? Is this a good referral partner? So, start building that funnel and start placing people in your network that you are going to be that trusted resource for.
Is there anything else you'd like to share in terms of somebody who may be starting a business or just getting into the game, so to speak?
Yeah, and another thing that I see with new entrepreneurs too is they think they need a salesperson. They're like, oh, I need a salesperson. And that's really not true. In fact, I think it could be very detrimental to hire somebody as a salesperson before you're ready. Now, you may come to the point where you need that, but you are the best person to sell your services. You created the business, you're passionate about it, and you are your product. So showing up and gaining the person's confidence is important. And, just going out and hiring a salesperson who may not be in alignment with your vision, your mission, or you may not have the funnel, it's going to waste time, energy, and also could be detrimental.
Yeah, you touched on the importance of being heard. And I haven't been in sales industry myself, but I remember hearing someone in a documentary who was in car sales saying when they started, they just talked and talked and talked and talked and talked. And it wasn't until they started listening that they actually got more sales, that they listened more than they spoke.
That is that's a constant challenge, because I get excited about what I do. So I do tend to talk, but I have to really be intentional about hearing what the person is saying and how they're reacting.
It's so rewarding when everything is aligned. You and I have both clearly had experience in other fields that weren't necessarily a good fit, and just getting to a place where your professional and personal life is nicely aligned is a very rewarding thing, I think, for your health and for everything, really.
Absolutely. Because no matter what, everybody says work-life balance. The reality is it's work-life integration. And if you're not happy doing what you're doing, or it's not rewarding for you, no amount of money is going to make that difference. And listen, you have to do what you have to do at different times, right? Do what you have to do until you can do what you love. And especially, I would imagine, being an artist or whatever, we've all done it, and there's different seasons, but make sure you're aware of what lights up your soul when you're working, And there are jobs out there. There's jobs, you don't have to create your own business to have that satisfaction either. That's a great way to do it, but there's a lot of opportunities. So don't resign and think like you're stuck, because there's so many just really cool companies out there now and really great initiatives. So there's something for everybody.
Another thing I wanted to touch on actually is, competitiveness is something that frustrates me a little bit, because I think there's room for everybody and everybody's individual and bringing their own thing. So the importance of collaboration instead of competition is really important.
Yeah, 1000%. I mean, there's a million coaches out there. There's a million salespeople. It doesn't, I always say, if somebody's saying this is the only way, use my program, use my coaching, this is the only way, that's typically what I avoid, right? I know I can offer something good, but I also have a lot of colleagues that are in similar spaces and they're amazing also. And, it's nice to see when you're doing work, like, I spoke to another sales coach. I didn't even know she existed, but she does relational sales, and we chatted, and it was exciting to see that we're trying to change the face of like the typical sales pitch. And her avatar is a little bit different than mine of who she needs. So we could be referral partners, we can be encouragers, and there's enough space out there for everybody.
That's the point. We can all rise together. There's no need to take each other out.
Exactly. And it makes life more fun when you're cheering somebody else on too, and you have people that are cheering you on.
I know I've often tried to do a lot on my own, and there's such an importance to the collaborative process and working with people who can bring something else to it.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. But in that too, I think you have to know what you are, you have to have your vision and your core values, and don't let others sway you because you think they're doing it better or whatever it may be. When I started my business, I specifically, I have marketing sales for 30 years. I specifically didn't do any type of research on other people doing it out there in this space, because I really wanted to create something that was in my heart and unique to me. Come to find out, there's other people in the space, but I didn't want to be swayed by thinking, oh, wait, well, this person's been doing relational sales for 15 years. Maybe they have a better way. I really wanted to keep it true to me. So there is value in collaboration and feedback and all of that. But you also need to have a strong vision and strong core values. So this way we can learn from everybody, right? Even if somebody has a completely opposite opinion of us, you can still glean something, but you don't have to be swayed to going off course, because there's always the latest and the greatest. And people, and in a world of social media, everybody looks like they're succeeding and doing things much better than you are. And that may not be the case.
Core values is something that's consistently come up on the show. I agree. It's so important to define what those are and try and shape things around that. What are your core values, and does this align with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And throughout my career, and I guess, we were discussing about corporations, big corporations and stuff. And you're right, when it doesn't align, because I will always do what's right, even if it means more work for me, even if it means, I don't get that sale, whatever it looks like, I'm always going to operate ethically and on, really looking at that other person and doing the best that I can. So I can't conform when it isn't in alignment.
Thanks so much for your insights. And people can find you on the website that you mentioned before.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has been a pleasure, and I appreciate your time, Daniel.
There you go, guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you have a challenge or guest recommendation, please reach out on my website at danthomas.net. If you would be so kind as to leave an honest review on whichever podcast platform you listen to, that would be very much appreciated. I'm on all social media at Mr. Dan Thomas, and my YouTube channel has video versions of these conversations and other projects. Thanks again, and all the best with whatever challenges you may be facing, no matter how big or small they are. Catch you on the next episode.